Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Lethal Sales. So happy you're here. Thanks so much for joining us. Tonight's topic is Fight Club, BDC versus sales. Why is it always like that in the dealership? Why does it have to be like that? And whose fault is it? I'm going to start with Shawn.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Quite welcome.
um, Man, that's a loaded question.
hmm We do that here.
Whose fault is it? I think it's the fault of the ecosystem. I think it's the fault of if you really think about the four main reasons why a BDC would fail. If we start from begin with the end in mind, one of the number one reasons of a BDC fails is when executive management is not behind it. So what happens now is when executive management is not behind it, it's not to be, how can I say, adversarial when I say something like that, but if the top brass is governed from a month to month to month ecosystem, I mean, every department is under this scrutiny. Every department is under this pressure to perform and to execute and to train and to do all the modules and to call backs and all these phone calls. So if everybody's kind of operating under this silo of anxiety, obviously at some point it becomes fend for yourself mentality. At one point, we can't even have a herd mentality because the month is not long enough, or there's not enough days really for us to kind of work together, put a strategy together, and operate and work towards a common goal. So I think ultimately one of the main reasons why this exists, what I would call relationship chaos, is just because A, we're not governed by the same targets. B, we're not rowing the boat in the same way. But it's really weird because we all want the same end result. So I really fundamentally believe that it's the idea of not being in alignment from day one of each month with regards to getting to a common goal, working towards a common goal.
I mean, technically, we're reborn every month. So, I mean, we get to start over again. We live in a 30-day world.
Correct.
On the car business and on the floor. Other business, they don't really operate like that. So we're in a unique situation, and we get overloaded and we get hit with multitask, and we get pulled in 9 different rabbit holes. I mean, heck, in this conversation, I can put you in a dozen. But the bottom line truly is that, until you get it together, when I was on Western Avenue, it was chaos. I mean, I could write 20 deals in a day, and 17 of them were bust outs, and I couldn't get them bought. It was a different world. When I went a little bit farther south out of Chicago to Bourbonnais, they didn't know that hustle and drive. So in the mid-90s, I got down there. Nobody cared about answering the phone. They didn't care about an internet lead. They didn't care about the eBay was just starting. They just cared about people walking in the door. And it was a good old boys club. They saw me walking in, and I had a little bit of tan skin, and, they're just, whoa, maybe you should talk to the Mexican customers. And I just kind of went, I don't speak Spanish, but okay. So they had their negative coffee clutch, and I just kind of said, all right, that's fine. I would just look at them and say, I understand, and I just walk away. And I would go and up people, and I would work leads, and I worked the internet leads. I worked my referrals. I moved down to that town. I didn't know nobody. First month I did 17 cars in a January, and it was dead. And I just kind of just met everybody, went to the same coffee shop, got my hair cut the same person. I just networked. I just talked to people. I just made friends. I bird dog every insurance agent and every credit union manager that I met. I put my own flyers back in the day on windshields on a Sunday when we were closed with my pager number and said, call me. Of course, I had to get there at 6 a.m. and get that stuff off of there before the salesman lynched me, on Monday. But the owner didn't care. He said, David, you do what you got to do. And I said, all right. I said, let me get some pages in Auto Trader. Let me get some pages in Car and RV magazine. Let me get this Automart magazine. He goes, we don't use those things. I said, I get it. I said, but, coming from the city, I did. I said, let me put my pager in them there. I said, here, I'll buy a couple pages in each magazine. You just split the deal with me. He's like, yeah, go for it. Work them. So I did. Within 3 months' time, I'm doing 30 cars. Everybody's like, man, what's this guy doing? My managers, I'm just like, man, you got to get out of my way. I got to put this deal together. I said, do you understand a four square? I said, here, I got to work them for money down. I would walk up there and hold a conversation with myself. And I'm like, man, this is like Mayberry. I just don't get it. And they had a messed up culture. So I was rude and ignorant, eventually took their jobs, did a great job. Became the top salesman, became the used car manager, the general manager. Owner said, hey, I'm 87, Dave. I'm checked out. I'm selling the place. Here's a check. And I said, wow, that was a thanks I get. First, I just went out and said, man, I'm going to go drink. I had to go find a gun. I'm depressed. My life just got changed upside down because I got a new owner. And I said, wait a second. This ain't nothing. This is life. I got to turn this around and face this. And if I'm not happy with these people, it's okay. I'll give it 30 days, but I'll just go get another job. Ain't nothing stopping me from going to the next place and being successful. So the next place I went to was Bill Jacobs in Plainfield, and I became a manager there. And man, those managers hate me. They couldn't stand me, because I walked in with my disc training and talking about you got to sell to this personality type and you got to desk this way. And everybody said, you're crazy, and I'm just like, nah, you got to use technology. We got this thing called Autobase. And we're going to use it. And we're going to do this way with advertising. We got this bucket system. And they're just like, again, you're crazy. All we got to do is sit here and wait on customers and answer the phone. And I'm like, that's only part of the job. We got all this other things to do. Boom, before we know it, the town blew up. And now we're doing double, triple the units. We're becoming a force selling cars. But things change, management groups change, pay plans change. And I said, hey, I got to go. So I didn't learn a lot really in my culture. The only thing I learned from the car business then was here's a pen, go sell a car. Here's some inventory, go sell a car. But my attitude was every time I got there was I won the lottery. I look out on that lot and I said, damn, I'm going to make me some money every day. This is a poor kid from nothing that was homeless, that did his time in the military, and I'm coming and I'm going to rise up.
Hey, David, if
great.
you're military, we thank you for your service.
Welcome.
And we appreciate you you joining in.
I'm sorry to take over and talk.
No. We listen, everybody on the show gets to speak.
Appreciate you.
But steering it back to BDC versus sales instead of working together with sales, let me jump on something you said that Peter Smith always says, that it's a 30-day thing. That instead of being long-term or a year, it's every 30 days. But if you think about it, everybody, doesn't that make it extra stupid for sales and the BDC to go to war? If you're a salesman and you're being measured every 30 days, shouldn't you be extra grateful that there's somebody out there trying to make interviews set up for you and trying to get people in? See, that's the strange thing that you would think that the most natural thing on earth would be, hey, man, I got some people that want to make appointments for me. Let me go up and see them. Let me hug them. Let me see if they need any help with product knowledge. That's what's so crazy, because you turned yourself around. You said, I'm depressed.
Oh, Larry, you went into the matrix.
He froze up a little bit there.
Uh-oh, Larry.
Too much passion. Too much passion. Too much passion.
Yeah,
Texas.
I get what you're saying though, because
I like this, Larry.
Everybody's in sales, and there should be no animosity between the BDC and the sales department. But that comes from the top and the leadership. We're all just one team. I cultivate sales. I put salesmen in the BDC. When you hire somebody new, you got to do a walk in my shoes. You got to put them in the BDC, no matter if they're a manager, no matter if they're in the office. Everybody should know what your service writer goes through, what your cashier goes through, how it is to stock in a car, how it is in HR to hire somebody. If you're not putting people in the BDC to work in there before you put them on the floor, really, I get it if they're an experienced person, but even then, you still got to go get to, meet the people. You got to learn that culture. You got to learn that tribe. You got to invest in something. Every group I've ever been into, my best friend is the BDC.
Welcome back, Larry.
There he is.
Hey, David, you don't realize that when I'm in the matrix and nobody can hear me, it's actually a plus for the show.
It's okay.
It is.
I love hearing
Shawn just said something kind of like that. I like this, Larry, he said.
I think he was talking about the one that was frozen.
That's what I meant, yeah.
We love Larry. We love Larry.
It was a great pose. Let me just jump in for 1 second here. David and I had a good conversation today while I was driving around. But what you mentioned and what Larry was talking about is the 30-day career. Because in this industry, we operate on 30 days. You go from champ to chump, you go hero to zero, and that's literally how you're thought of. Doesn't matter that you were the top salesperson for the last 6 months running, but if you have a blank month that basically you didn't show up for or whatever, you are measured on that, and your job is in jeopardy. You have another one like that, then you get written up. If you get another one like that, you're out the door. It doesn't matter that you were the top guy for the last 3 years. Something happened in your life that changed the dynamics. You could have, and it might not be in your life, it might be in the company's life that someone was hired in a different department that is affecting your sales. Now, you turn around and look at that from a BDC perspective, you're firing off what you assume, and unfortunately I have to use that term, you assume they're hot leads. And they, depending on how the distribution of them, you could be getting it just could be just not your month, or the 2 months in a row just might not be your month. You're not connecting with them. However, with technology, as David was talking about, we can define who those leads go to and who is the best opportunity to send that lead to based on historical values. We know
Peter,
that.
excuse me just for a second. I see Tim jumped in, and I know it's the last day of the month, and he is kicking butt at his store. Tim, we're just so glad to see you. Congratulations on all the good stuff that you're making happen there.
Thank you, sir.
We're talking about the irrationality of the BDC and sales not being best friends and not working together, but instead being at loggerheads. And any thoughts you have would appreciate, and then we'll jump back.
And Peter just said this, if you guys can hear me okay. Peter just said this, and I like the word he used, and I don't call them BDC anymore. I changed that name. I call them opportunity managers. And because they're managing the opportunities that the store gets anymore. And with that, they have to have a strategic intersection with sales. And my stores that I've worked at, whether it be Mazda here, whether it be at Nissan in St. Marcus, or now Volkswagen here back in Columbus, Ohio, it is very important that these are opportunity managers, because these are the opportunities that the store gets. If you fumble those opportunities, then it's game over. And so they have to work strategically with not only the salespeople, but also the desk. And the sales managers have to also be willing to work with these people in order to work together to find these customers into the showroom.
But Tim, and I see my boy Ron Baus is on. So this is a question for both of you guys. Here's what I just don't get. I don't understand how we overlook all the business that's right in front of us. Tim, I've been on a training jag. I'm in Texas. I've been in Georgia. I'm everywhere. And I went to a BMW store. I won't mention the name. Good store. But it's just like they must hire people with strange brain impediments. I'm talking about orphan files. They're not interested. I'm talking about going back to service. They're not interested. Why do we constantly overlook the business that's right in front of us that we don't have to jump through hurdles to get to? Ron has an incredibly well-run family store. His BDC is about 40 feet. Maybe I'm even exaggerating, maybe 30 feet from his office. And Ron's one of these guys that he's always walking through the store. Ron, what are your thoughts on how we can try to get BDC and sales to realize they should be best friends instead of like deathly enemies?
Well, I think that listen, it starts at the top. It starts with the atmosphere we work in, what we created over the years, and then BDC is something that's relatively new. When I say new, in the last 10 years, but I feel like in some ways it created a little bit of laziness with the salespeople. Because you sold cars back in the day, so did I, and we had to do everything from cradle to grave.
No, wait a minute, Ron. I'm defending my brethren. I've never seen a lazy salesperson. They're never too lazy to complain there's no business, to discuss how inept management is, and to blow off people that don't come to them with money sticking out of their ears. Have you ever seen that, Tim? I mean, they've always got enough energy to complain and bitch. Go ahead, Ron. I just wanted to interject.
But what I think too is it's like, listen, it's also, a lot of it's, your attitude, like, look, we all know we get guys that show up and they do the bare minimum. They, and it's frustrating. Like you're trying to essentially clone yourself, or at least a work habit. So I think it's just, I agree with you. The business is out there. It's right there. But I think it's really important that all departments, row together in the same direction. So I have weekly managers meetings, and I bring I bring all the managers in. I don't keep them separate. And the reason I do that is because, listen, if somebody wants to throw somebody under the bus, go right ahead. Let's just get it out and done and over with. But that doesn't mean we have to stay there. The other thing is, a lot of times there's departments that, like, for example, like say, I don't know, my parts guy's like, man, I got all these, running boards, this, that, and the other. Then my used car manager, or us, we'll step up and say, okay, well, let's see what kind of vehicles we can put this stuff on, and basically to help one another. And I think that, when it comes to BDC, it's a cost center, and it's busy. There's a lot of, there's a technique to getting these, people on the phone, setting the appointments, getting them in, and it's kind of like defining the role. Like, so what's a salesperson's job? Is to sell the car, to show the value, so on and so forth. The BDC's person, main responsibility is obviously to, create the appointment, to get them in, and answer any questions that they can. I think my store works pretty good with the BDC. But I can see where bigger stores, it can be a little combative. But that's not, that's also that's because that's the way I want it. When you saw the BDC department, that was my office. I gave up my office to go to the corner of the showroom, the other side, because it made the most sense to have them right outside where the sales managers are. So if they got a live one with questions, they can go right, they can hit the guy up, and they can, they have the answers. It's not like, well, let me hold, we all know it's the same theory. Every time you get up from the desk to answer a question, it costs you money, it costs you gross. So it's the same thing. How many times can you put somebody on hold before, all of a sudden they're like, they feel like they're dealing with incompetence, and they just escape. So I just think that, in my case, maybe I'm not the best person for this call to ask, because for the most part, my guys do get along, but I do see the challenges that can happen. You have to curb a guy he's just trying to burn through ups, and he's just trying to grab every lead, and he's not closing. That's a problem, so it's those things you have to still monitor. So it's not like they have complete reign, to just free will to just do what they want. Because the other thing too is, if I catch a guy that's burning through ups, I'm not giving them any more BDC leads. I'm just not. It's just like, you can't, there's accountability to it. You have to make sure the notes are in there with all the things that, like anything else. Let's face it, we have the best tools we've ever had in our whole lives. And, somehow we go backwards. Like we're praising a guy that does 20 cars when it was like, and I know you were a weak POS if you did, less than 20. So
but wait a minute, Ron. Let's look within what you're saying. In your case, you're paying the BDC. These guys and ladies work for you.
Yeah.
In salesman's situation, the BDC's working for them for nothing. They don't pay the people, and their sole jurisdiction is to bring people in for an interview. And when you're done with your thought, let's get to Wendy. If she can't tell us, between her and Shawn, if we can't get good BDC answers, then it's just because we're not asking the right damn questions. And Shannon's on too. Hi, Shannon. We'll get with you in just a sec.
Well, listen, I'll just land it right here, Lisa. I think it's, there's definitely an art the BDC. There's definitely a value to it. You can you can ping pong back and forth. Do I outsource it? Do I keep it in house? And I just think that and I've said this before. We all have the same signs out front, brands, but the businesses are very uniquely different. And I think you just have to be adaptable to what your market is. Like, I mean, we're not a McDonald's or a Chick-fil-A, it's the same, but still, it's like, I think people believe a brand is just, they just operate the same way. And there's just different needs, different markets, different situations. And like I said, some things work great in areas and some don't. For me, let me put it this way. I'm content with the BDC. I think there's better opportunity. And quite frankly, when things got a little slower, they're picking up a little bit. I question, should I outsource? Because I look at what I'm paying him and I look what's coming in the door. Is it just the hiccup of the business? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But, we all know, like, listen, it's that old saying, you can't compete with Santa Claus. It's, there's some truth to it. There's, things are they're just stalling. What do you do? You know what I mean? It's not like I don't want to lay anybody off, but sometimes you may have to shift from an expense point of view. So yeah, I'll land it there, but hopefully,
Ron, it's the perfect transition because we're going to Wendy next, and she's married to Santa Claus, so it's perfect.
There you go.
Wendy?
Well, I mean, I'll push back. I don't think that sales and BDC is the where we need to bridge a gap primarily anymore. I think it's more fixed and variables and everybody in the store and AI. I think that's the current challenge. And the belief that it's a teammate, et cetera, et cetera. So I won't go down that. I'll stay on topic. But I will also say that, gosh, for over 12 years now, I've been known before aggressive was in for a trainer, except for like Alpha Dog or somebody. I was known as a hard-ass trainer, and I've made more than one BDM cry. And they're on-site, usually rebuilds, because I'm known way more as a strategist than outsourced BDC is the least of what I do. And that's only because they don't have enough alternatives where somebody doesn't say, okay, this is our box. Choose one of the things in this box, and that's what we'll do for you. And we'll do it for 7 days, or we'll do it for 14 days. And it's at best a Band-Aid, because I'm sorry. And I do that, but it's my least favorite thing to do is micromanage BDCs, because the whole problem starts at the top. And between sales and BDC, what I see now, I mean, like, let me show you an example. And there was one in Waynesboro, there was one in Grand Rapids, there was one in Austin, Texas. And the two on the East Coast were a year ago. The first day, the BDC manager was bawling her eyes out. And the GM had to talk her off the ledge, because the GMs they're still overworking our BDMs who are getting beat up all day, who have to beat up on their agents, who are getting beat up by the customers. And there's not a clear definition of expectations, nor is there accountability. And that's why they outsource more than anything, because the churn and everything else that you have in our on-site departments, it's because of the lack of people getting their shit together and having all the players rowing in the same direction. So example, the GMs, those that are still task driven and don't understand that this is a performance thing. I mean, for BDC, it's all about the shows. We start the relationship, we provide value, and we earn the right to ask for an appointment. We represent the why buy from us proposition for the dealership, et cetera, et cetera. And then we set the appointments and we drive the traffic, and then then it gets TO'd to a sales manager or a service advisor, and then they take over from there in a strict BDC environment. I've also done internet cradle to grave. There is stickiness there between regular sales reps and internet and skates and splits and this and that and the other. But as far as BDC and sales, they've got different expectations. They're beating up the BDMs. They're not including them in their pending meetings or anything else. So they don't know what the sales guys have expected of them. And then they're telling the sales guys, you've got to set 5 appointments a day. Well, if you've got a BDC, they are then stealing appointments from the BDC or tripping over them and sending a barrage of texts and making phone calls and bugging the crap out of the customer because they want to get to them first to set that appointment. Now, in an ideal situation, like I have a dealer right now on the East Coast that, and it's cool because he's drive centric. So we've got the AI assistants as well. But he's like, look, I don't care if you guys physically set the appointment or if my guys do it. It's a team effort. As long as they're in the showroom and we have an opportunity to sell them a car, just get them in the door. But of course, we also have the lead nurturing. So opportunity manager is great, but I also would suggest that they're the engagement team. They nurture the leads. They start the relationship. They establish rapport. They're consistent. They're CRM police. I mean, the first one in '07 that I did was because we had Who's Calling, and I think we had just started with Promax. Part of that, it was Autobase, but like out of 600 phone ups in Who's Calling, only 200 of them got in the CRM because the salespeople stink at details. So all this is still going on exactly the same way. And the problem still exists because at the top, so the DP, we typically have buy-in, right? But then the DP delegates to the GM, and maybe he's not being held responsible, and he's new because they've got a revolving door with GMs, and every new GM wants to impress the DP or owner operator. So they bring in their people, they change processes, they et cetera, et cetera. So the whole thing is communication, in my opinion. The whole thing is we need to include sales and BDC more together in the things that are going on in the dealership, whether it means like way back, and I don't know if you still do this, Shawn, but I know I do. I always encourage sales to put a BDC sales rep in a BD if they're assigning appointments to the manager. Put a salesperson in the BDC to do up calls for a couple of hours and maybe do the calls or the tasks of an absent BDR. And if they set the appointment, they can sell the customer when they come in. I don't know if that's still being done. So cross training in that, or even sending a BDR to shadow a salesperson to understand the showroom process, or even the BDC manager to sit with a floor manager or a GSM or whatever. I think it's just a matter of us all having different perspectives. The salesperson wants the warm body in the showroom that they can close. The BDC wants opportunities to set appointments. And at the same time, sales is still brooming our appointments off the lot because they came in on an ad leader. They still want to turn everything into an inventory call instead of going back to pre-COVID and selling the option. Yeah, that vehicle is available as well as several close matches. That way they don't feel like we did a bait and switch if the car they were on is gone, because they remember that, oh yeah, Wendy said you have a bunch of other vehicles like it. What else do you have? And then you explain and set expectations when you arrive. You'll ask my manager, we'll give you the vehicle you asked for, as well as several, whatever else we have on the lot. We'll give you all your financing options. Within 30 to 45 minutes, you'll have everything you need to make an educated buying decision. You have 30 minutes, don't you? And then we get them in the door. But then we let sales take over. And even if it's an opportunity, I have a lot, and all the way back to '05 with the group in Milwaukee, that maybe the BDC takes it day one, day two, and then sales jumps in, maybe even end of day one with a video. Hi, I'm your Ford product specialist. I'm here to help you. I'm the one that you're going to meet when you come to the dealership. So they have a face so that you humanize it, and that's going to aid in engagement. But if you have to work them together, you have to toggle them, and you have to make them realize that they're all together, because otherwise they're distinctly kept in these different silos, and it's never going to get fixed. That's what I have, Larry.
I got a couple things I want to add. First of all, as I was trying to get into, is we're on the 30-day career, and to really have sales and BDC work together and really work together is we got to have that understanding that we're wearing the same name on the front of the sweater. It has nothing to do with the back of the sweater. Tim, you're in one of my favorite towns, Columbus, Ohio. I'm a big Ohio State fan. My son played hockey there, so it's I believe in the sports analogies. But when we look at it, we also have to have the confidence that once the BDC does their job, and they take that lead and they create it into an opportunity, and they're passing it off to the sales, like I put it in the chat. And you're going to take that once they become an opportunity, they're a customer. They're not a client yet because they haven't done any business. They're a customer. Now we want to make them into a client. So we can't drop the ball. We can't drop the ball as soon as they come to the lot. And I did a mystery shop on Monday of 15 dealerships. in the Buffalo, New York area. I was greeted by 5 salespeople out of 15 dealerships. I never saw anybody else. Never saw a single soul. I was in a Porsche dealership. I put my hand on 5 Porsches and never got asked to have a conversation. And it was disgusting. I watched a Kia receptionist have her feet on the desk while she was talking to me. I saw a car, a dealership with a lockbox system on all their cars. So every car had the keys outside on the cars, and one of the lock boxes was broken, so they tied it to an alloy wheel. So if we want to know where it's broken everywhere. It's like you look at how we have technology, and David is one of the most brilliant guys I've ever met on technology side. And you look at that technology that we can put together to service the dealership, from your BDC, the inbound leads, the service department, whatever way we want to talk about it. And then we just blow it on the human side. And we do. We blow it every single time. And you're right. They're opportunity managers, the BDC. The salespeople should be relationship managers. The goal should be long-term customer care, not a transaction. We should be looking at a single point of contact, because that's what the customer wants. Everybody on this call, when we travel, we don't want to talk to 5 people to get on an airplane or buy a ticket. We just want to buy a ticket. That's it. So why are we making it difficult? Why are we making the friction there? Why are we not transparent? Because we live in a category of fear. And Shawn, you know what? You've been a coach to me in a lot of ways. So is Larry. And it's about understanding that if we do the right job, we won't have any challenges. None. In my career of sales, I've never asked for an order. I've never asked someone to buy a car. I've never prospected. Now, how did I do that? I used my circle of influence because I did the job correctly. That it just came naturally. You can go from a 10 car a month salesperson to a 45 car a month salesperson in 3 years by getting 1 referral per customer a year. That's it. 1 customer. Look after those customers. You're making more money than you could ever imagine by just looking after the customers you sold. That's it. Anyways, that's my rant. I'll get off my soapbox. I'll let everyone else jump on. But I look at things a little bit differently. And today, believe it or not, I was called a whore because people thought I was actually out there to solicit business. I don't do that. So
hey, Peter, it looks like, besides haven't heard yet from Jeff or Mike or Shannon, looks like we got our girl Martha here, if we're talking BDC. Martha,
yep.
Let's hear from you, and then Mike and Jeff and Shannon, we want to hear from everybody tonight, please. Okay.
You're muted, Martha.
She's frozen.
She might be at work.
Oh,
Okay.
No.
You're just listening in.
All right,
Shannon, are you available?
I am here. Hello.
There you are.
Shannon,
so why don't you give us your opinion?
We're discussing BDC and sales and why they don't forge an invincible team instead of being at loggerheads.
Yeah, I just want to agree with Wendy and Peter. I think it starts with the culture inside the dealership, right? Stop allowing that blame culture and the finger pointing from one department to the next, because we're all in this together and we all have the same goal. And why aren't your employees working together hand in hand to complete that sale. I mean, how much better of a customer experience is it when the BDC person is setting the customer up for that meeting with the salesperson? And then the salesperson feels great because, they just got an ego boost from the BDC person. So everybody's going to work better together, right?
Absolutely. So I got a question for the dealers. Ron, Tim, David, you're all in a dealership right now. Acquisition is a much higher cost than retention. Yet we'll invest 5x to get acquisition over retention. The BDC can be an enormous tool for what I've always said, business retention department. Why are we not focusing that opportunity on that and really pushing the why buy here of your dealerships? You're at a Germain dealership, Tim. Ron, you have Spirit Dodge. David, you're in Illinois at I apologize, I don't know the group. And Martha, you're in California. Why are we not doing that as an opportunity and utilizing, knowing that people will refer and repeat business is between 70 and 90% conversion rates? It makes no sense that we invest so much in lead generation. It's that giant fear. If we don't sell them, someone else will. Well,
we don't teach it.
Yeah.
We just don't teach it and explain it. And we don't show the culture of how to do it. I mean, it's just, you keep showing it and lead by example and just doing it repetitively, whether it's the BDC or whether it's in the service drive or whether I ask for a referral, it still has to be taught. The problem is the 10-car producer of yesterday is the sales manager a lot of times. And he needs to be trained, and the used car manager needs to be trained. And that owner is not the owner. That's his grandkid that's running the store. Okay. He's third generation and he's their failure and he needs to be trained too. So, I mean, it all comes down to communication and training and standards and process and execution. It doesn't change in our business, really. It's the same thing we've all been doing for decades. But these walls of communication and having this island effect between BDC and sales, it should never exist. We have to change that culture. We have to change and just become a better way. We're just all one team. Everybody's in sales. We just have to get over ourselves, move out of the way of the ego, and set the culture again. We need to set this whole year, all of us, on reset. And we do it every time, every 30 days, and we get that opportunity. But if we do it, though, that's the problem. Do we really reset it? So I'm going to quit talking about this, but I just wanted to chime in before everybody else hits it.
Great. Jeff and Michael, and then maybe we'll see if Martha freed herself up.
Well, I think, David, you hit on a key word, ego. And I think another key word is trust. Because, again, I can only speak when I was launching the AutoNation Direct program way back. But all the retail guys thought, oh man, you internet guys got it easy. You don't have to work, to make sales. And there was a lot of jealousy. I don't anticipate or think it's like that now because, back then people barely had websites. But I think, it's control and trust. And, I'm curious for Wendy and Shawn maybe to answer, is it a problem more with trust from the manager, or is it just the sales team on the floor versus the BDC?
Martha might be good on that one because she had a hybrid when she was at Wonderies, right, Martha?
Yeah.
Where you handled the floor guys and the BDC.
Yes. I have most of the time I have had a hybrid. Correct. I like we have said it many times, it's about culture, correct? But the culture is not from the BDC teams or the sales teams. It's actually from the managers. because on most of the places where I have been at, the ones that I have fought that culture and that have fought about the unity, the working together, hasn't been the salespeople or the BDC reps, it's the managers, because they don't trust. Why? Because we're coming from an old school, an old model, okay, where they don't take the time, or they don't believe, that a BDC can actually be fully trained and capable, okay, of establishing a connection. And there are the base person at the dealership to actually establish that loyalty and retention. And because you're going to have a better relationship with someone that, let's be honest, a BDC sometimes stay longer at a dealership than a salesperson, correct? But the issues that I have had, again, it hasn't been from the sales team, from the lower, it's from the higher ups, is the managers. And once that the sales teams or the BDC hear the doubt, okay, and the questioning from the upper management, they don't trust. They don't trust. I mean, I get approached constantly by managers that tell me, I don't believe in BDC. They don't do anything. They don't know how to do anything. And I always tell them, well, do you take time to train them? Have you ever sat down in a BDC room and actually listen and see what they do, how they do it, and if they're doing it wrong? If your BDC manager is doing it wrong, have you sat down with them and trying to guide them and help them out? Right? And that's where the pointing fingers have to stop. Correct? But the pointing fingers doesn't happen at the lower level. It happens in the higher ups. So that's where the pushback happens.
If I can,
just answer. Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
Sorry, just one thing to finish with Peter. You said, why aren't we doing that and mining our own gold? Because it takes effort. Leads come to me; they get dropped on my desk, right? And then I work them, whatever. But if I got to do more work, it's not going to be successful with most people. Go, Shawn.
Yeah. Sorry. I guess I'm just cut from a different cloth, and I'll just speak from my angle or the way I do things. So, for those that know my story, I spent 18 years under the rooftop. I built 6 BDCs from the ground up for Canada's largest dealer groups. Before COVID, boom, started my own coaching and consulting, and now I'm all over the place, kind of like Peter. Texas, Chicago, Illinois, New York, David, Illinois, actually, in Moline. I have one of my dealer groups there, so I might come and see you if you're not too far one day.
We're gonna do pizza,
yeah,
or steak.
Texas Roadhouse. I mean, I'm a sucker for the Texas Roadhouse. Those buns. Oh my good God.
We might do that, but we're gonna go get some real barbecue. There's some places in the city out.
But I'm serious. Next time I think I'll be down there next month. However, the point I'm trying to make is this.
Just text me.
Coming from the space of an in-house BDC, okay, I can't speak for anything else. There's a broad spectrum of BDCs. Is one better than the other? How long is a piece of string? If it works for you, then it works for you. So coming from an in-house BDC perspective, I am a high-performance BDC coach. When I first started in this business in 01 and 02, the people that were my mentors and my bosses, old school, they had suspenders with their socks up to their knees, banging on the desk in the conference room. If that kind of sets the tone with their big beards, there was no HR. It was like, Shawn, deal with it or pack your stuff and get out. So that's not what I do today, but that's kind of the DNA that I was basically assembled with. So today, obviously much more watered down. When I'm going into dealerships in that discovery call, respect from the BDC is earned. It's not given. And one of the strongest things that I do with BDC managers is I make them realize if you are not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. And at the end of the day, the focus on there's a distinction between tasks, shows, follow-ups, cadences, AI, all of this automation that makes the BDC work. Good for you, Mr. BDC or Mrs. BDC manager. That is part of your duty. At the end of the day, how does it move metal? At the end of the day. So I think that the BDC manager has two hats. There's the number one, which is the operations, and it's the way, like I call it, the front of the house. So it's the operations and it's the task and it's all this mundane stuff. But at the end of the day, when I'm personally working with my dealer groups, how is it that I can guarantee them a 3-to-1 return on their ROI? How is it that I can tell them very comfortably that by the time we're finished, at a minimum, the BDC should represent 30% of global sales? 30% of global sales. Great. Now we have a number. That's the accountability piece. I get it. The kumbaya by the fireplace. Everybody wants to be happy. We all want to be invited to the meetings. I get it. But at the end of the day, the BDC needs to have a value proposition. We are in a numbers game. And that is the only way, truly, for me, after 23 years, that I found that the BDC is going to get the respect that it fundamentally deserves. And it's to be part of the actual solution. Are they moving metal? If they are responsible for 30% of global sales and we achieve the 30%, from that point on, let's have the discussion. But if you're not at 30%, 25% at the beginning and start pushing slowly towards 40, what are we really talking about here? So it's really about accountability. It's about creating a value proposition for the BDC, whereas they need to have some kind of a target every month, just like the sales floor. And then that's what I call an even playing field.
And
mic drop moment there.
Can I add on to the mic drop?
Go ahead.
This whole discussion has been great, guys. But I kept thinking in my head, who, what, where, why, how, right? The who is the top. And if they don't have their brand and the 9 questions answered, the mission, vision, values, and so on for themselves and the name out on the door or the building, then who are they doing it for? You got to know your mission, vision, values, and all that, and have it written down and share it with the management and the employees, all of them, to the guy that sweeps the floor at the end of the night. Everybody's got to be on the same page. Then you get everybody rowing together. But if there's a question on that, okay. The what? We know what the customers know when it's going good or when it's going bad. They can see it. They can see that friction. You don't think they see it? I mean, so get it done. And I don't blame the top guys, because they have no tools to do this. So now they have a tool, and I just put it in the chat. So go get your map. And then the how, it's write it down. And so we go back to the communication. So that's what I gathered from this whole thing. And the solution is write it down. And if you don't know, there's a tool for you. I've dropped my mic.
So basically what we're saying is that we just have to have a clearer focus on the objective. Sorry. That's my Canadian slang. The objective is the goal. The goal is to create an environment for the customer to come in and be successful in their journey to purchase a vehicle from your dealership. They've already done all their research. It's just making that the route to the sale for them easier and less friction. Why do we do things so many ways that don't make sense in this business? We just have to clear it up. And when you have a BDC that is firing on all cylinders, I mean, really doing the job, it makes that transition to the sales department that much easier. That much easier. And Larry said it so many times. And Larry's famous quote, car pulls on the lot and 3 guys are looking out at the car. That guy's not a buyer. Send the rookie out. Stop prejudging everything. They're coming to you because they have a concern. I don't put in a lead into a car dealership because I want to know what the approximate payment is on my neighbor's car. We don't do that. We do it, we go through it because we know we're going to be raked over the coals for the next 30 to 90 days by a dealership that's not, they're going to be a dog on a bone until you actually say, listen, enough's enough. And that's the truth of the matter, whether it's the BDC or the sales team, because we have those activity boards that make no sense at dealerships. Have you made your 75 phone calls today? Really? What's that going to accomplish? You're not creating a relationship, and no one wants to buy off someone that's just transactional. So with that, it's we got a job to do, and that's create teamwork from one to another. Think about right now, we're in the hockey finals. It's passing the puck that actually leads to goal scoring. It is the most important thing out there. That's why assists get more points than goals. You can get up to 2 assists on a single goal, and they're equal in points. So let's work as a team. Think of it that way. It's important. And that's my 2 cents. So I'll pass
Zamboni
it off
that showroom floor.
You got it. Well, you don't want to hear about my mystery shop.
Oh yeah.
You know what?
Right.
Piggyback. I know what Shawn said. It's very true. You know, respect is earned, and I think it's around time that also dealerships start investing a little bit more on training their BDC. You know, because they need to learn, they need to grow. Like what Shawn is doing is great. You know, coaching these teams. A lot of dealerships for the longest time, you know, and probably Shawn will remember that's how we got into this business, right? When we became BDC, there was not that many people, unless we will go to the sales training. There was always sales training available for the sales associate, phone call training, internet training. I know you wanted it to send the BDC reps. They were like always kind of like, no, we don't know if we want to make that spend, but we're expecting them to produce at least 30% of their sales, right? So I think right now, moving forward, like I'm very happy to see that a lot of dealerships are investing in doing that and spending the time, because in order for the BDC to grow and bring more business and retain the business, they also need that training, that training that, for example, that Shawn is providing, you know, that many of you are providing to those teams, you know, which, you know, I wish there was more dealership actually doing it, because it's very helpful. Because you got to earn your place on this whole transaction and this whole dynamic too.
Can I just ask a question to Tim, or if there's other dealers, like a legitimate question?
Sure, go ahead.
To Ron or Tim, any like dealership, and Tim, I saw that you were with the Cavenders for a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was actually working for them for a little over a year, so I was inside big group. But my question to you, Tim, is currently you have a BDC, correct? In-house or what have you? In-house? I don't. You okay?
I actually have 2. I have an opportunity manager here at the dealership
that
handles the leads, but also we have a group for the service and also sales BDC. So he kind of manages it, and he works as a liaison between the actual BDC center of sales and the sales team, and works with the sales manager. So,
but there's an element of BDC, correct?
That's correct. Absolutely.
Okay, great. And being the general manager, I don't know if you would be privy to this information, but is there somebody in whatever capacity, BDC manager or whatever you want to call them, but at that level, is there somebody on a monthly basis that gives them a specific target? Guys, I need X amount of vehicles to come from this department every month.
Yeah, I normally set that.
Okay, I normally
cool.
Set that target. May I ask you?
And again, I just
what's that based on? Like, I'm super curious.
It's based on some of the lead count, but it's also let's look at phone ups. Let's look at floor ups. because over 90%, it's probably closer to almost 100% of people go online first, and they're literally almost every sale is coming from online. They're looking and shopping based on websites, based on what you have available out there. They're looking at that. So when I say opportunity manager, my guy is sitting at the desk with the sales managers. He's looking at the leads coming in. He's working with the BDC teams. He's looking at phone ups, looking at floor ups. He's working in conjunction with all that. Now, when we look at stuff, we look at different things. Okay, phone ups. Are we closing around 30% of those? Internet leads. Are we closing at 15% of those? There's also campaigns like KBB ICOs and so forth. Correct. Those are like 5%.
2%. I was going to say
2 to 5%. I like to shoot at 5.
ICO, ICO is a cash grab.
Yeah. So you're looking at all those, and then also floor ups, and again, people that just had no appointments just come straight in off the street. Correct. So we're looking at all those different matrix, and then so he's looking at those. He's graded upon those, and the overall you want. I always say you want about 15% if you can as
Correct.
a total. Of
Correct.
all that. So that's the things I'm looking at. So that's the goal is 15% of all those. And okay, cool. But you're also, as a main count, just looking at internet. Okay, what's your lead count? What are we closing at? What's our appointments? There again, always appointment set and show. But as you're looking at all those things, you don't have people taking, when he's graded on all those, you don't have people taking a phone up and throwing it into the internet bucket, or a showroom up throwing an internet bucket, because he's got to always have his correct buckets to go to. That's what I use.
Well, Tim, listen, literally, congratulations. I'm in BDCs across the nation, and seldomly can anybody even half articulate what you just did. So kudos to you, sir. Seriously.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Learned a lot from Brian Kramer, though. So if you guys might know him. And
Brian is solid, actually. Yeah, I think Stan Scherer is at his building today, I think, or something.
But and Peter brought up about the service to sales thing. One of the things I've learned, and I learned from him, is how they did it down in Toyota in Naples. When he joined with the Germain Group, and also coming from AutoNation and going to Germain Group, is how he turned his sales team into working the service drive. And they still use that same formula down there with Wendell at Germain Toyota of Naples, and how they do that. So it's a very key thing. I'm starting to implement that here just a little bit. We grabbed one out of sales today, or service today, and turned it into a sales. But everybody was involved. BDC, salesperson, sales managers, they all jumped right in and help. And that's one of the things we try to do here. I'm a little bit smaller dealership than that, but everyone jumps in and helps. And I throw the confetti at the end.
Yep, the confetti king you are. two cannons per customer.
Sometimes 3.
Yeah. So with that, I'd like to we're just coming up on the hour. Has there been anyone that hasn't had the opportunity to speak tonight? Michael, you haven't had chance. I know you're in dance class, but
Michael is he's the first Canadian I've ever met that doesn't have a hockey team.
There he is.
Here
yeah. I don't really care about hockey or anything like that, but I just want to say, I know the whole BDC talk came up with David Sparks in one call, and he did mention that one big disconnect with I think he was talking more or less about the in-house BDC. He was talking about the pay, how the pay should reflect. It should be at a higher rate, right? And Peter, you're in Canada, so you know about Down Valley North Toyota, right? It's one of the biggest Toyota dealerships here, and they have something called CEC service reps, which is like a cool name for customer service reps. Customer service reps, they only handle service appointments, right? But I got to tell you, when you walk in, they show this big image on the website, these are our reps. But when you walk in and you talk to these guys, they hate their lives. They make $17 an hour, $18 an hour. They do a whole heap load of work. They're not happy, and you can see that in their face. Right? And I feel bad seeing it because they took me down to the sales area where making the deals and stuff. And these CEC reps don't look happy. They look like they're there because they have to be there. They're doing a job, making $17, $18 an hour, all dressed up well. And I felt bad. And that's one thing that David Sparks did bring up, was that hey, the pay should be a big factor of it. If you have people working in-house and stuff, you have people bringing in, and again, these are just service reps at Don Valley, Toyota, but he did say that, if you have service reps at in-house BDC reps, the pay should be equalized, and it should be higher than what they typically get paid. Because what if the BDC guy makes the sale, right? What if he does? What if he gets the customer in, and that's the reason why you make the sale? What about these things? That he brought it up. And again, I did mention to Mike Larkin that I've never worked at a BDC. I don't know how BDCs really work. I just love listening to these calls and understanding how these things work. But that's what he brought up. But what do you guys think about that, about the pay part for BDCs? Maybe jacking it up a little bit, right?
I'll answer that because here's my belief in pay structures at the dealership. We're in a free market economy, or we should be in a free market economy, and the economy should dictate what that job pays. Now, in that circumstance, if they have turnover of that position, then they should increase the price or the value of their pay structure. If they do not have turnover of that position, that means either the people are mandated to be in that job because they need a job, or that the job is actually paying the right amount. Or the value of that position does not exceeds the value of the concern, basically. So basically, it's a self-regulated position. And if you're going through turnover, you're actually costing yourself money, and a significant amount of money. 70% of that person's salary is what you're costing yourself on a position like that. So if you have a 40% turnover of that position, and then you look at the cost of the salary, it doesn't make sense to pay them a low salary, because all you're doing is you're causing yourself havoc.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%, right? I mean, look, if they're bringing people into the front door, I think that's golden, right? You're getting them right through the front door. That's a lot more than, look, I've been to Audi downtown. I've sat and spoke to the sales manager who sits on the top floor. He looks down, and you see reps over there throwing and playing with balls. And you see one person walking around and talking to all the reps, all the sales guys, and, just doing nothing. And this is midday, right? And they're just throwing balls. And I'm just so I asked the manager, listen, are you guys not going to be calling customers consistently? His answer was, yeah, they're lazy. What do you want me to do? Well, that's not an answer. You guys got to do work. They're sitting there idle. There's no customers in the showroom. Like, what are you doing? Start making calls. Find out whose leases are coming to an end. Try to get them interested. And that's their mentality, right? My mother-in-law bought a car from Audi downtown, an Audi Q3 back in 2020. And when her lease came up for renewal, you had the sales rep call her and try to sell it to the new vehicle. So my question was, look, why would you get into the new vehicle if it's the exact same vehicle? And she didn't try to upsell me into something new or something different and say, hey, try the Q5 instead. It is a better vehicle. Her answer was, okay, sure. That's the kind of mentality that these sales reps at dealership. Again, this is only Canada. I haven't, been to a US dealership ever in my life, so I don't know how it works. But this is just their mentality that I've seen, and it's just very negative.
So in saying that, again, it relates back to what is truly necessary in a dealership. It's not training, it's coaching.
Yes, I agree.
And if we train a dog, we coach a person.
Yeah.
And with that, it's so imperative that we actually understand what performance lift is going to come out of it. Someone walks in to do a job, we give them the description, there you go, do the job. They can perform at X level. You train them, that level will increase to 23% by 23%. You coach them, that increases up to 88%.
Correct.
It's a different mentality, and we have to function on that. And that's with that, we're pushing up on the hour. I would like to take a moment and say thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. It's always a pleasure to see y'all on the call. Shawn, thank you. Shawn and Larry are having a big BDC sales workshop in Tampa. I hear there's a very special person endorsing them tomorrow. I'm not going to let it out of the bag, but it'll be all over LinkedIn tomorrow.
It's
Who's
big.
endorsing?
It's very big.
It's big. It's huge.
So big. It's huge.
It's huge. But
all I gotta ask is Rhonda gonna bring out the swear jar for this promotion?
So let me finish
but
there,
you
Mike.
might.
So with that, that's on the 22nd of May. Anybody who's in the Tampa area, we suggest coming to see it. Tomorrow, I have David Rosek as my guest on Automotive Innovators and Disruptors. We're going to be talking about everything about AI and how it interacts with the dealership. And is it going to be the demise, or is it going to accelerate us? There's a lot of things that we're going to talk about. It's going to be a really interesting event, and we look to see you all there on Clubhouse at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. on the Pacific Coast. And Wendy, you got your hand raised. You want to say one last thing?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that if David didn't mention it already, that he and I will be on a panel at the CATA on May 15th in Chicago, on navigating under the hood with AI and dealerships. I'm going to do the keynote, and then David and 3 AI experts and myself will be on a panel moderated by Phil Sura. It's going to be a great event. It's free to dealers, anybody who's in the Chicago area. And each dealer can bring 2 vendor guests. So, and I'm sure David will talk more about it tomorrow, but it's going to be a great event and hopefully the first of many, right, David? Thank you, Peter.
Absolutely. So with that, thank you, everyone. Larry, we'll talk soon. Take care, and we'll look forward to next week. And Rhonda will have us a new topic.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Stay healthy, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for everyone's time.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Love you guys.